Good Erev Shabbos, everyone. This week's Parsha is that of Vayigash. Yosef, who had accused his brothers of being spies and then orchestrated that his brother Binyamin should be accused of theft, is approached by his brothers, and Yosef recognizes their true, sincere regret and repentance. He informs them that he is Yosef, and they reunite. They return to their father Yaakov, and it says that they tell him that Yosef is still alive. Your son Yosef, he's alive. Oh, Yosef Chai. And he's the ruler in Egypt. And our sages tell us that they didn't just come out and say this to Yaakov. It would be a shock. Slowly, Yaakov was being introduced that perhaps Yosef still lives. And then they informed him. And the verse says, Vayofag libay. His heart was not with them. Ki lo ha'amin lahem. He didn't believe them. How do we understand this? Yaakov is going to think that his sons, who are making such a statement, would deceive him and lie to him? And maybe he had assumed that his sons were manipulating the circumstances. Maybe he suspected them that maybe they did something harmful to Yosef. But now Binyamin was with them. Binyamin was with his father the whole time. He was not involved in selling Yosef. He was Yosef's brother from the same father and same mother. Certainly Yosef would not fabricate and lie to his father. How do we understand that he doesn't believe them? And not only that, this is something which can be determined. It's not as though they're telling him something that's theoretical. You're saying that Yosef's alive? I'm going to find out. I'm going to send people and find out. What does it mean he didn't believe them? So our sages explain that, of course, he believed them when they said that Yosef is alive. But he did not believe them that this was the same Yosef of 22 years ago, who was 17 years old when he left his father, Yosef the Tzaddik. Yosef, the one that God revealed the dreams of prophecy to, that it would be his mission to prepare and provide for Klal Yisrael, not only during a famine, but during their existence in exile. That this is the Yosef to whom God revealed that the sun and the moon and the stars would bow to him. That's what Yaakov couldn't believe. You're telling me that Yosef is still alive, the same Yosef? He was taken at 17 years old. He was taken as a slave down to Egypt. He had no family. He had no connections. He was a slave. He had no influence. He had no money. And not only that, he is found within the bowels of depravity. And you're telling me that for 22 years he was not influenced and he remains Yosef a Tzaddik? That's what he didn't believe. And then it says that they spoke to him all of Yosef's words. V'yadabru elav iskol divrei Yosef, asher dibra aleim. And he saw the wagons. And then vatechi ruach Yaakov aviyam. Then the spirit of Yaakov, their father, was rejuvenated. What were these words that Yosef spoke to them that all of a sudden proved to Yaakov that indeed Yosef is alive and he is the righteous same tzaddik? Our sages say that when Yaakov, 22 years earlier, sent Yosef to visit his brothers, that Yaakov escorted him. And Yosef said, "Why are you escorting me, father?" And Yaakov shared with him what Avraham brought to the world, and that is what we call Eshel. Eshel is Aleph, Shin, Lamed. And that is that if you have a guest or you have someone who's leaving, you provide them with Achila, Shasiya, Leviya. you provide them with food and beverage, and you escort them. Yosef ate, and he had something to eat and drink. And then Yaakov said, I'm going to escort you. And this is what we learned from Avraham. That's how you treat a guest. And this was the last thing that Yaakov shared with Yosef. This halacha, this Jewish law, that when you have guests that you've given them to eat and drink, escort them a little bit. So Yosef shared with his brothers, tell this to my father. And that's what the brothers were sharing. And they spoke to Yaakov the words of Yosef, saying, Father, the last thing we spoke about was this mitzvah of escorting a guest, escorting another person. And with that, Yaakov realized, Yosef, my son, the righteous, is still alive. But this is difficult to understand. Yosef might have had a good memory. He remembered the last thing that he and his father spoke about. And not only that, these were the words coming from his holy, sacred father, the last of the patriarchs, the one who was so righteous that when he had the dream and saw the ladder, angels going up, angels coming down, the angels were coming to look and say, do you see the face? Do you see the image of this Yaakov? This is the image we see in the throne of glory of God. Is there any question that Yosef would remember what his holy father had said to him, his last words? Because Yosef remembered and said, Dad, you remember 22 years ago when we did this? Oh, that proves that you're still righteous. How do we see he's righteous? He has a good memory. The truth is, we must understand what exactly is this mitzvah of escorting a person. Someone has a guest, so we want to help them. We want to feed them. We want to give them something. They're in need. Come, sit down, have something to eat, have something to drink. That we understand. That's a need that the person has. After we give them to eat and to drink, and they say, thank you so very much. And we say, it was a pleasure having you. And they get up and they leave. What difference does it make to the guest if we walk with them a few feet? We walk with them 8 feet. We take a little walk. Dalet Amos, I say, around 8 feet, we escort them. What difference does that make? Why is that equivalent with giving them food and drink? How do we understand this? The answer is that a human being, and this was what Avraham Avinu brought to the world, and this is what Yaakov was sharing with Yosef. A human being is not just an intelligent animal, as many in the scientific community will say. Now, we're at the top of the ladder because we have an intelligence. An animal needs to eat and drink, all animals. If we have a pet, we have an obligation to feed our pet, the animal, before we eat. They have a need. We're responsible. But a human being is different. A human being is not just an animal who needs to eat and drink, but a human being has the ability to perceive the existence of God. And that is because, as it says in Genesis, when God created Adam, he made him B'Tselem Elokim, in the image of God. What does it mean, the image of God? God has no physical image. It means that there is an intelligence, an ability to perceive depths of thought. And that is the gift that man has received from God, so that we can comprehend that this world didn't just poof, come into existence all by itself. That is ludicrous and insulting to an intelligent human being. No automobile ever just appeared by itself over 1,000 years. It requires a manufacturer. Look at the incredible intelligence and how it functions. What about a human being, and what about our whole system and our planet and the universe? A human being has the ability to recognize and understand there's a creator, there's a God, there's a master and that we have the privilege of serving him. How do we serve him? Recognize his benevolence, the magnitude of his greatness, and fulfill his will. What is the will of God? He outlined that in his Torah. He gave us mitzvahs to emulate God and perform kindness, to be charitable, to do the mitzvahs that he's commanded us, to study his word. That's a human being. And this is what Avraham said. A human being, sure, he needs to eat, he needs to drink, but he also needs to be escorted. Why? Because you escort someone, you attach yourself to something which is of great significance. The animal ate and drank, okay, the animal goes off. You don't have to escort the animal. But a human being, you know what it means that you came here, you ate, and you said a blessing, you made a bracha before you ate, a bracha after you ate. We recognize the existence of God. We have an opportunity to utilize our intellect and say, look how great the Almighty is, that he created food that comes right out of the ground, that sustains me. He brought bread that fills me and allows me to be healthy. This is all a gift from God. This is a human being. A human being is something of great prominence and significance. And therefore, Abraham said, we should escort a human being. When the Torah is taken out, we take the Torah, we lift it up after reading, and when we put the Torah back, we escort the Torah. It's holy, it's sacred, and so is a human being. Because we are in the image of God. We have the ability to perceive his existence. That's what Yaakov shared with Yosef. Not just, by the way, Jewish custom is we escort a guest. Oh, okay. But rather it's much deeper. He was informing Yosef, a human being, is a Tselem Elokim, the image of God. We can perceive God in anything and everything that happens. And that's what Yosef instructed his brothers to share with his father. Yes, I was 17 years old when I was taken into captivity, and I was brought into the depths of depravity and lascivious behavior into Egypt. And I had no connections, and I had no means of possibly dealing and conducting my own life. But I recognize something, that I am a Tselem Elokim, just as you taught me. And no matter what the circumstances are, I have the ability to perceive the existence of God. And that's exactly what I did. As a servant to Potiphar, as a slave incarcerated for a life sentence in a dungeon, I was able to see the hand of God and serve him. And as the viceroy and most influential man in the Egyptian empire, I continue to see the hand of God. And this is what you taught me, Father, Holy Yaakov. You taught me that a human being is not an animal who just survives, but we thrive because we are in the image of God and we can see God's handwork in every circumstance. With that, Yaakov knew that Yosef was alive not only physically, spiritually. He was Yosef HaTzadik. I think one of the elements that we're struggling with in our modern day is that people think man is an animal, eats, drinks, and yeah, we can be creative. But the concept of man being Tselem Elokim, the image of God, able to perceive the existence of God and serve him, that escapes many people today. But it doesn't escape us. And therefore, we shall continue in our growth, in our study, and our perception. And may we be worthy of witnessing revelation of Mashiach in our lifetime. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay Jewish. Have a wonderful Shabbat.